I had planned everything in advance. Cleared my work schedule, turned off notifications. I just wanted a few peaceful days with my family. But the moment we got to the airport, something felt off. My ticket? Canceled. No explanation, just gone. And when I looked over at my sister, she was smiling. That same smug little smile I knew all too well. That's when I realized she did this on purpose. My parents decided to take my younger sister on vacation instead of me, and let's just say it didn't exactly go how they'd hoped. She ended up ruining the whole trip and even got herself arrested. Now, after all these years, they're finally starting to see her for who she really is. So here's some background. I'm 23 now, and I have a younger sister, let's call her Madison, who just turned 18. And to be completely honest, I've always believed she's got a real dark streak in her. I've tried for years to get my parents to open their eyes, but they always brushed me off. That is, until recently. The thing is, my relationship with my parents has always been a little rocky, mostly because of how they treated Madison. See, before she was born, my mom had a miscarriage. It hit her hard, so when Madison came along a few years later, they saw her as their miracle, the one who brought light back into their lives after all that pain. Naturally, they doted on her like crazy. She was the center of everything. And don't get me wrong, when we were little, I genuinely loved having a little sister. But it didn't take long for me to notice something was off. Madison had this uncanny ability to twist situations in her favor. She always knew how to make herself look like the innocent one, no matter what really happened. One time, for example, it was my birthday, and our grandparents gave me this gorgeous old pocket watch. My grandma told me it had been in our family for generations, so I was over the moon. But Madison, she wasn't having it. She kept bugging me to let her share it. I said no, obviously. It was my birthday gift. She even tried dragging our parents into it, but they couldn't really do anything since it came from my grandparents. That night, she got her revenge. She knew I was terrified of spiders, and somehow she managed to sneak one into my pillowcase. I woke up in the middle of the night feeling something crawling across my face and absolutely lost it. My parents came running, thinking something awful had happened. Madison acted all innocent, pretending to be concerned. But later, when we were alone, she smirked and straight up told me she did it on purpose to teach me a lesson. No shame, no apology, just that creepy little grin. Another time, I had a crush on this guy from school. Let's call him Tyler. I finally got the nerve to invite him over for a movie. I even picked out a cute dress and everything. I was really looking forward to it. But the moment Tyler walked in the door, Madison accidentally spilled juice all over me and then laughed like it was the funniest thing in the world. I was humiliated. I had to rush off and change, trying to hold back tears, and she didn't stop there. She kept butting in while we were watching the movie, telling Tyler embarrassing stories about me from when I was a kid. I couldn't believe how determined she was to ruin it. When Tyler finally left, Madison looked him dead in the eye and said he could do way better than me. I don't think I've ever been so embarrassed. And of course, when I told my parents about any of this stuff, they just waved it off, said she was just young or didn't know better. It always ended the same way. I was the dramatic one, and Madison was the sweet, misunderstood baby of the family. Eventually, I just stopped bringing it up. It wasn't worth the fight. She stayed their favorite no matter what she did. Meanwhile, I was the blunt, difficult one who just didn't go with the flow. I poured myself into school and managed to get into a great college, which also meant I could finally move out and get some space. Whenever I came home for breaks, Madison made sure I knew I wasn't welcome. She'd give me the silent treatment, avoid sitting next to me at meals, and jump into conversations just to shut me down. It was like she went out of her way to make my presence unbearable. She'd also mess with my stuff constantly. say she was borrowing something, then either lose it or break it. And my parents, they'd tell me to be the bigger person or just try to get along. So eventually I stopped coming home altogether. I'd crash with friends or come up with other plans. And honestly, my parents didn't seem too bothered. They figured I was just enjoying my independence. After Madison graduated high school, she didn't get into any four-year universities, so she ended up going to a local community college and staying home. Meanwhile, I started working for a global company out in San Francisco, and I really do love what I do. I still keep in touch with my parents from time to time, but I don't visit much. And I haven't talked to Madison in ages. But then something happened that brought me back. My dad had a serious heart attack, nearly died. Thankfully, he pulled through, but it was a close call. My mom called me right away, and I jumped on the next flight home. After he got out of the hospital, the doctors gave him a long list of meds and told him he needed to start exercising and taking better care of himself. That scare really shook him. He kept saying how lucky he was to still be here and how he wanted to spend more time together as a family. Since I can work remotely, I stayed at their place for a little while. I wanted to be there for him, but it was clear right away that Madison was not happy about me being back. I did my best to steer clear of her. I didn't want to stir up drama, especially with everything going on with Dad. Then one morning, during breakfast, my dad suggested we all go on a trip together. Said it had been way too long since we'd done something like that. At first, I was hesitant, but seeing how much it meant to him, I agreed. Madison wasn't thrilled either, but she didn't really have a say. Dad went ahead and booked the flights and found us a place to stay. I had already cleared everything at work, set up my out-of-office notice, and made sure no one would bother me during the break. I really wanted this trip to be about spending some time with my parents. But the moment we got to the airport, something felt off. Turns out, my flight ticket had been canceled. My dad looked just as confused as I was. He kept saying he booked and paid for 4 tickets, no question. But when they checked, mine and only mine was mysteriously canceled. I stood there trying to process what just happened, and then I saw Madison looking at me with that same smug little smile I'd seen way too many times before. That look always meant one thing. She was behind it. And I was right. I knew in my gut she did it. Probably logged into my dad's account and canceled it herself. I called her out right there. Told my parents she clearly didn't want me on this trip to begin with. But of course, my mom jumped in immediately, saying something like, "Your sister would never do something like that." Then she threw in the usual line that I was just jealous. My dad tried to stay neutral, suggesting maybe it was some airline glitch. I couldn't believe they were still defending her, even now. But there wasn't much I could do. The flight was full. They checked, and there were no seats left for the day. Technically, I could have flown out the next morning, but honestly, I didn't want to. I wasn't about to head back home, book another flight, and show up late just to be stuck in a hotel room with Madison. I had no idea what other games she might be planning. At first, my dad suggested maybe they should all cancel the trip and reschedule. But then he said it had been years since he'd had a proper vacation. My mom agreed, told me I'd travel a lot anyway and wouldn't be missing much. That stung. It felt like they were hoping I'd just tell them to go without me. So I did. I told them it was fine. They could go ahead. And they agreed. Just like that. So I stood there at the airport, watching the three of them walk off toward their flight, off on a vacation I was supposed to be part of. I didn't want to go back to the empty house, so I flew straight back to San Francisco. I tried to shake it off. I still had time off work, so I used it to catch up with old friends, read some books, and just take a breather. A quiet staycation, I guess. While they were away, my parents would video call me now and then. I could see how much fun they were having, eating out, sightseeing, relaxing. It was clear my absence didn't make much of a difference. I wasn't crushed or anything, but yeah, I felt left out. It was just another reminder of how obvious the favoritism in our family had always been. I still hoped that one day they'd finally see who Madison really was. And I guess that day finally came. A few days into their trip, I woke up to several missed calls from my mom. My first thought was that something had happened to my dad. I called her back right away. She answered, but her voice was shaky. Something was clearly wrong. She told me that they started noticing that my dad's heart medications were disappearing, one by one. That was dangerous, considering how critical those pills were for his condition. And being in another country, they weren't even sure if they could get replacements in time. They turned their room upside down looking for them, but nothing turned up. Then, while Madison was out, my mom went into her room to borrow sunscreen, and that's when she found them. All the missing pills that had gone missing the past few days. She was in shock. She called my dad over, and he saw it too. Every single pill that had gone missing the past few days. That's when it finally clicked for them. Their miracle child had been messing with his health on purpose. My mom was rattled. Her voice was shaking when she asked if they should confront Madison right away. I told her no, not yet. They needed to wait until they were back home, calm down, and think it through. Madison had always been good at twisting things, and if they brought it up too soon, she'd probably find a way to talk her way out of it. But later that night, something must have gone down because I got a call from my dad late at night, and he sounded completely shaken. He told me Madison was in jail. I was stunned. He said that when they asked her about the medication, she completely lost it, started yelling, throwing things, insulting them. It spiraled so fast that hotel security had to call the police. Her anger was mostly directed at my dad. She yelled that he never should have included me in what she called their family trip. Then she dropped this wild threat that if they kept talking to me or having anything to do with me, she'd make them regret it in ways they'd never forget. She just kept spiraling, and eventually the hotel staff had to call the police. When the officers showed up, she refused to calm down and started throwing insults at them too. That's when they took her in. She was held for about a day, and there wasn't much my parents could do at that point. They just wanted to pack up and leave. But when they went to grab their passports and wallets, both were gone. Turns out she'd either hidden them or tossed them somewhere out of reach. Whatever the case, my parents were now stuck overseas without IDs or money, completely stranded. And I think this was the moment reality started hitting them. They finally began to understand what I'd been trying to tell them for years. My mom, who used to defend her no matter what, called me in total distress. She asked me to help, said they had nothing on them, not enough to get to the airport. You could hear the panic in her voice. She was devastated, not just by what was happening, but by the realization of who their youngest daughter really was. I reassured her I'd send them money through a transfer service, but they needed to find those passports first if they had any hope of coming home. I honestly didn't think she'd destroyed them. I figured she'd just stashed them somewhere out of reach. And for the first time, my parents really listened to me. They admitted I'd been right all along. They even apologized for the way they excluded me from this whole trip. And while it felt good to hear, part of me couldn't just let it go. After everything, all the years I felt like the outsider, it's not easy to suddenly forgive and forget. Since all this happened, my parents have been calling me constantly with updates. And every time they do, I feel more anxious. When their daughter, let's call her Emily now, got released the next day, they told her straight up to hand over the passports or they'd involve the authorities again. With no real way out, she eventually told them where they were hidden. Once they got back home, they had a serious talk with her. They told her it was time to pack up and leave, that they couldn't live like this anymore. That triggered yet another meltdown. She screamed that she never wanted to share them, said that just the idea of me being part of the family again drove her over the edge. She demanded they cut me off completely, said she was enough, and that they never should have invited me in the first place. It was clear at that point just how deep her resentment toward me really went. They tried to calm her down, but she kept going, threatened to tell people they were abusive parents, that she was mistreated as a child. All made up stories. Then she said she'd file false reports with the police if they forced her to move out. That's when the fear really set in. My parents are both respected in their field. They've worked hard for decades. The idea that she could damage that with just a few lies, it was terrifying for them. And things have only gotten worse. When she found out they were talking to me now, she flew into another rage, started smashing dishes. Then she hid their car keys multiple times, making them late for work. Last night, my mom called crying. Apparently, she had refused to cook dinner because she was exhausted, and Emily lost it. Started screaming, throwing things around, then locked herself in her room and blasted music all night so they couldn't sleep. It's taking a toll on them, emotionally, mentally, everything. And now, I'm scared she might actually hurt someone. I can't go back right now. Seeing me would probably send her into another rage. But I've been urging my parents to talk to a lawyer and figure out a legal solution. I really think it's the only way out at this point. It finally happened. Emily got arrested again, this time for something far worse. One evening, in the middle of yet another fight, she grabbed a kitchen knife and came at my parents. They were terrified. They did the only thing they could, called the police. This time, she was taken away immediately and charged with assault. My parents were shaken, but they knew they had to act. They met with a lawyer and started the process of having her legally removed from the house. They filed for an emergency removal and began paperwork for a formal eviction. It wasn't easy for them, not emotionally, not legally, but they knew it was the right thing to do. My parents didn't want to press charges. They just wanted her gone. After she was released from custody, they handed her a formal eviction notice. It was a legally prepared document that laid out exactly why she had to move out and by when. They made sure it was all handled the right way, so she wouldn't be able to fight it in court. Then they took the next step. They met with their lawyer and officially filed for her removal through the legal system. It wasn't easy. They were essentially suing their own daughter, but they felt like they had no other choice. Eventually, the court ruled in their favor. It was official. She had to leave. If she didn't do it on her own, law enforcement would have the authority to make her. She's supposed to be out by the end of next week. My parents are finally starting to feel like they can breathe again. Like maybe, just maybe, peace is coming back into their lives. It's been a long road, but they're holding on to hope that once she's out of the house, things will start to heal. Throughout everything, I've stayed in close contact with them. And to give them a real break from all the stress, I invited them to stay with me for a while. They've come out here to visit me in the city, and honestly, it's been good for all of us. I think they needed this change of pace, just a few days to relax, reset, and feel human again. And I've wanted to show them that despite everything, I still care. I'm here. Update 3. Since I first shared this story, I've read through hundreds of comments. So many of you brought up something important, that maybe, just maybe, my sister's behavior is rooted in a deeper mental health issue. The truth is, we've thought about that too. But because she's legally an adult, there's not much we can do unless she chooses to seek help herself. And given her history of explosive behavior, we're walking on eggshells trying not to trigger another outburst. Still, now that my parents are staying with me, we've been able to really talk. Last night, we sat around the table in my apartment for the first time in years and had a real, honest conversation. Both of them apologized, genuinely. My dad told me he regretted not listening to me sooner. He admitted they had fallen for the version of her they wanted to see, the sweet, special daughter they never thought they'd have. And my mom, she looked at me with tears in her eyes and said she felt like she'd failed me, that she had ignored the signs, brushed off my pain, and pushed me into the background. I told them I appreciated them finally taking accountability. I also shared things I had kept bottled up for years, moments I had tried to forget, memories of the way Madison treated me, and how alone I felt in that house. They listened, really listened, and I could see how much it hurt them to hear all of it. But for once, they didn't interrupt. They didn't deny or excuse anything. They admitted they let their love for their youngest daughter cloud their judgment, that they were so caught up in who they thought she was, they missed who she had actually become. It wasn't easy, but it meant something to finally have that conversation. It wasn't a perfect ending, there's still healing to do, but it was a turning point. We agreed that trust would take time and none of this could be fixed overnight. But we also agreed to move forward together. For now, we're making the most of the time we have, walking through little cafes and street fairs, sitting on park benches just talking. It's been a process, peeling back layers of guilt, hurt, and missed chances. I think my parents came out here not just to escape the chaos, but because they needed a new beginning. And so did I. We've had more honest conversations about what comes next. Madison, from what we've heard, is staying at a friend's place for now. And as much as part of me wants to cut her out completely, we can't just abandon her either. She's still their daughter, and despite everything, they still feel that responsibility. We've come to a point where we can all admit this probably isn't just about attitude or bad decisions. Something deeper might be going on, and we want to help her, but in the right way. The goal now is to gently encourage her to get evaluated, not force it, but offer support if she's willing to take the first step. Once my parents return home, they plan to reach out to see if she's open to talking. As for me, I'm keeping my distance for now. She still has a lot of anger toward me, and I don't want to be the reason things escalate again. I've advised my parents to meet her in public, somewhere neutral and calm, if they're going to talk face to face, just as a safety precaution. We're not trying to assign blame. We just want her to understand that we care, even after everything, and we want her to be okay. More than anything, we want peace for this family. And maybe this is the first real step toward finding it.